it seems like he's being welcomed back into the international community. He's getting what he wants in these negotiations. And I think it's just a quite alarming message it's sending to the world that aggression wins.
Today is the news that the UK is planning to unlock £8 billion of frozen Russian assets and use it to fund Ukraine. The EU is working on a similar scheme, but it's been blocked by Belgium, where many Russian assets are held because the country's Prime Minister worries that he'll be on the hook for the money if the war ends and Russia wants it back. It highlights the inability of Europe to find a consensus position on what to do with Russia. And efforts by the UK and others to isolate Russia are further undermined by the fact that India is hosting Vladimir Putin for a state visit today. I have to say, Michael, that I have some sympathy with Belgium. I stand united, etc., on defending Ukraine. But the unfreezing of assets and using them to support Ukraine is a complicated issue.
It's legally quite complicated, and the trouble is it sets a precedent that other countries could impound assets and again take them away, simply confiscate them without any consequences. And Belgium is worried that supposing there is a peace deal, then the Russians could plausibly claim, well, you've stolen our money. I think it's absolutely right that this money should be used for rebuilding Ukraine. After all, the Russians caused the destruction, and that's their money, and they should pay for it. But I think there are legal difficulties. Britain and Germany particularly is determined to try to get these assets used. They've already used the interest on these assets, but there's a lot of money there. I think it's more than 90 billion in assets there. And Ukraine needs a lot of money. They need 132 billion just to keep their budgets going for the next couple of years. So it's an obvious place to find the money. But the Belgians are in a bit of a grumpy mood with the EU generally. It's extraordinary. Having been the most Europhile nation ever, they've got a Prime Minister who's actually quite sort of Eurosceptic. He's a Flemish nationalist, and he doesn't want to be told what Belgium should do. And they're all piling him to say, now, just listen, this is what we're going to do, and threatening to simply overrule him.
I didn't realise Belgium was revolting.
Don't be nasty.
When did this happen? This is quite interesting.
Well, the Belgians have. They have always had trouble between the two sections, the Flemish and the Walloons. The French.
They famously didn't have a government for about 6 months.
Ages
it ran
and
like
ages.
clockwork.
No, that's right. And they have the Flemish nationalists are quite nationalist, and they are quite sort of proud of sticking up for Belgium and not letting it be bullied as it has been throughout history. And they feel that they should have a say. Okay, they host the EU, they make a fortune out of EU institutions and NATO, but they do sort of feel that they should have a say in their own affairs.
Oh, radical stuff. I think you're right, Michael. This is much more complicated than it appears on the surface. And I think what is also complicated is the fact that Vladimir Putin has gone on a state visit to India, because we naturally feel India is an ally. India should not be countenancing hosting Vladimir Putin. But Alice, India and Russia ties go back a very long way. India's often bought Russian weapons. Many Indians have been educated in Russian universities. We've got to stop seeing the Ukraine conflict purely through the prism of our own eyes.
Yeah, and I suppose if we want to see it that way, then we need to step up in terms of our own defence. We need to be funding Ukraine. I think what's quite alarming about these peace negotiations is how sidelined Europe appears to be, and how this is all happening over our heads, and indeed over the heads of Ukraine. And it seems like Putin is winning, right? It seems like he's being welcomed back into the international community. He's getting what he wants in these negotiations. And I think it's just a quite alarming message it's sending to the world that aggression wins.
It is. I think you're right, actually. I think the tide is beginning to turn in his favour, which is very worrying indeed, which I guess does go back to the point about Belgium, that you would think that this would be the most important issue for the Europeans, and it would be a game changer if that money was used to support Ukraine.
Today we are proposing to cover 2/3 of Ukraine's financing needs for the next 2 years. So this is 90 billion euros. The remainder would be for international partners to cover.
Very much. And before taking your questions, just a short reminder that we have
listened very carefully to Belgium's concerns, and we have taken almost all of them into account in our proposal that is today on the table of the reparations loans. We have very strong safeguards in place to protect member states and to reduce the risks as much as possible.
Maxime Prévost, the foreign minister, has a feeling that Belgium hasn't been...
We all know that we can never match the sacrifice of the Ukrainian people, but what we can match is their stamina, their resolve, their staying power, and we can equip them with the means to defend themselves and to lead peace negotiations from a position of strength. And since pressure is the only language the Kremlin responds to, we can also dial it up. We have to increase the costs of war for Putin's aggression, and today's proposal gives us the means to do this. We want peace, and no one wants more peace than Ukraine. Therefore, today we're sending a very strong signal to the Ukrainian people that we are in for the long haul. We can equip them with the means to defend themselves and, even more important, with the means to lead peace negotiations from a position of strength.
So I can confirm that the letter from Prime Minister Bart De Wever to President von der Leyen has been received, and otherwise, as I've been saying also from this podium, the work with the Member States, including Belgium, of course, continues. Intense work following the presentation and the sharing by President von der Leyen of the options paper, which put forward a number of options on how to address the commitment made by the European Council to address the financial needs of Ukraine for 2026-2027. On the basis of that options paper, intensive discussions have been taking place with the Member States, including with Belgium, and we are advancing on this work. We have a very solid, excellent team of lawyers in the Commission, as you know, who has given many, many proofs and many examples of its excellence. So we are fully confident on our teams of lawyers.
Yeah, Andy Bounce from the...